Hey guys, I'm Megs, an often overcaffeinated, adequately tattooed, straight talking host, therapist, copywriter, and coach on a mission to conquer the crazy that is small business ownership. Join me every week for a rousing combination of lessons learned and gold nuggets uncovered on my own self employed journey, as well as interviews with other kick ass creative leaders and how to pointers for those business owners that want to improve their own professional copywriting skills, since words are kind of my jam. So sit back, grab a healthy serving of your favorite go go juice, and join me for Caffeinate and Conquer, the podcast. So you're probably wondering, who am I and why does it matter? Why should you spend the next 20 minutes listening to me? Well, I can answer the first part pretty easily. The second part, while I have my own opinions, will be open to your own interpretation. As you've already gathered, I'm Megs. I'm a creative copywriter, a ghostwriter, and a professional word nerd from the Pacific Northwest. Specifically, I come from a small town in the northwesternmost point of Washington state, where it rains more than it doesn't, flannel was hip before the grunge movement, good coffee is a religion, and fresh salmon is a staple, not a treat. While writing and storytelling have always been my passion, it was only very recently, like 3 months ago, that I made the decision and gave myself permission to leave the soul-sucking corporate world and turn my side hustle into a full-time grown-up business. Now, before I start boring you with how amazing my life is, owning my own business, loving my boss, she's a pretty badass bitch, partnering with other kick-ass, passionately driven entrepreneurs, working from wherever I like, whenever I like, and only putting on real pants when absolutely necessary, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a small western Washington town, there was a pretty average girl. She came from a pretty average family, brought home pretty average grades, and expected nothing more than to live an uneventful, pretty average life, working for someone else to fulfill their dreams and bank account. Now, this average life plan, it made the girl kind of jaded, really chapped her ass, to be honest. She didn't understand why other people could run the world, while she was stuck being average and doing the dirty work. In case you haven't already guessed, that angst-fueled girl next door was yours truly. And I'm embarrassed to admit that it took nearly 2 decades for me to wake up to the realization that the only person keeping me in that average life box, limiting who I became and what I could accomplish, was staring back at me in the mirror. Now, I've always subscribed to the belief that to truly know and understand someone, you need to have an idea where they've come from and some of the experiences that have had a hand in shaping who they are. So, here goes nothing. I babysat through my teen years, but once I hit high school, I decided it was time to find a real job. Now, this was back in the olden days when jobs were listed in the newspaper with actual ink on actual paper and tossed onto the front porch by some kid on a bike. After a few weeks of scouring through the classifieds, I found a position that not only interested me, but was something that I was confident I would be able to accomplish with ease. The job was for a local bakery, selling their yeasty, carb-filled goods at a local farmer's market on the weekends. The job description included being on time, being friendly, and able to make change, all skills I was pretty confident in. I was 15 after all, and in college prep classes, so basically an adult. I stopped by the bakery and completed their application, providing them with a copy of my humble resume, typed up on my mom's old typewriter. Again, this was the dark ages. I was super excited when I got a call the next day asking me to come by for an interview and arranged for my mom to pick me up at school between classes so I could make it there and back without anyone knowing I was gone. This was my first real job interview, and it went well, like really well, for the most part. I answered their questions, I showed appropriate levels of enthusiasm for the position, and I provided them with multiple references, ready to vouch for my time management, my maturity, and my organization skills. As we were leaving the office, the interview complete, I remember not being able to feel my feet touching the ground. I was floating on cloud 9. I was sure that I had absolutely wowed their socks off and would be hearing back with a job offer in no time. I was thrilled to be the first of my friends to have a real job and not be working fast food. And I was definitely already imagining how jealous they were all going to be. As we reached the front door, and I thanked them again for their time and consideration, the bakery owner asked one last offhanded question. "Where's your car?" I answered innocently and honestly that I didn't have a car yet or a license, but I had reliable transportation and lived within walking distance, so would have no issue getting to work on time. The owner stopped and gave me a look that made all hope disappear. "Why don't you have a license?" he asked. "Because I can't get it until next year when I turn 16, I replied. With that, he snapped. He wanted to know why I was wasting his time. I was a kid. He had better things to do. He had real applicants to interview for a real job. I am very proud to say that I did not snap back at him. I did not tell him that my birth date was on the original application or that I had marked that I did not have a valid driver's license where it had asked. I walked to the car where my mom was waiting, and I managed to hold back the ugly sobs until we had pulled out of the parking lot and onto the street. This experience, an exchange that lasted no more than half an hour over 20 years ago, has stuck with me as a lesson of the disgusting truth that can be the corporate world. That it's okay to be judged and disqualified from positions and opportunities based solely on factors that are completely out of your control. This is the first time I can remember thinking how amazing it would be to be the person making those decisions, to be yielding that power and using it for good. Of course, I didn't take action on that utopian fantasy until a few months ago, in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. But we're not quite there yet. Needless to say, I didn't get the job. After graduating from high school, I went on to hold positions as a nanny, a waitress, an insurance agent, an inside sales associate, and a call center team manager. All jobs that taught me valuable lessons, things I'd been able to carry with me throughout the years, both personally and professionally. But none of them ever felt right, and I would find myself before too long feeling absolutely disillusioned by the inflated promises, the inequalities, the unfairness, and the favoritism surrounding me. My fight or flight response would be triggered, and I would quickly make way for the nearest exit. After 20 years of feeling like a fraud, a chameleon, like I've been wearing a mask every day to change who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm willing to do, just to fit the wants and needs of everyone else, I finally realized enough was enough. I set a goal for myself, an ultimatum, if you will. I gave myself 1 year, 365 days, to either figure out a way to love and accept what I was doing, or to find a way to spend my time doing what I love. With the caveat that I'd like to be able to pay my bills, travel a little bit, and not have to resort to living off roadkill in a van down by the river. No judgment or offense, van life is great for some folks, it just isn't my style. The first thing I did after making this crazy decision was to share my goal with someone else. Someone I knew would keep me accountable and apply appropriate pressure when I started second guessing and doubting myself. For me, this was my then boyfriend, now husband. Yeah, we decided to get married mid-pandemic as well, but that's a story for another time. I knew that I wanted to pursue a career and a business that allowed me to tap into my natural skills and expertise. I wanted to write. But what? And for who? And again, there was that whole not wanting to be broke and living in a van down by the river thing. So I turned to the interwebs. I spent days exploring every dark rabbit hole I could find that related to making money by writing. And there are some really dark rabbit holes out there. I kept finding myself drawn to copywriting and ghostwriting, terms that are often misunderstood and misidentified as dealing with legalities or skeletons on motorcycles. And I pretty quickly realized that these were going to be the perfect umbrella for me. They covered the countless different forms of writing that I enjoyed so much and allowed me to serve a wide variety of clients, translating their passionate ramblings into cohesive copy that authentically shared their story in a way that connected with their audience. Next was deciding who it was I wanted to work with. At first, I made the crazy decision that I wanted to work with anyone and everyone who was willing to pay me. And while that may sound fine and dandy to some, I quickly realized that by focusing on everyone, I was putting myself right back in the same position I had been in every job I'd held. I was working for everyone else, doing what they wanted on their terms. That had to change. I decided that if I was putting the time and effort into birthing a business, God damn it, I was going to do it with people I liked and wanted to see succeed. I had to narrow my niche, my area of focus. I decided I wanted to work primarily with female coaches and service providers, although I do have a few clients of the male variety that have snuck their way in. Now, my entire business plan revolves around being my own boss, owning my own business, and working within the values and standards that I personally hold as non-negotiable. There's no more waffling on those values or negotiating on who I am or what I believe to be right. I choose who I want to partner with and to facilitate the success of their business as well as my own. For me, my dream clients are those passionately driven female coaches and service providers that are fulfilling their own purpose every day. Those savage business leaders that are making shit happen and are unapologetic about any feelings that might be hurt in their authentic pursuit to empower others. These are my people. I set about creating a website. Huge shout out to Squarespace for making this absolutely painless and surprisingly fun. I made a Facebook page, an Instagram account, and I got to work networking online, trying to get my new business in front of as many people as possible. My first clients were ladies that I've known from before, in a past life. A few gals that I'd reached out to via Facebook, sharing the exciting news about this crazy, scary jump I was making. These amazing ladies may not realize it, but they gave me the confidence I desperately needed to realize that I could actually make a go of this self-employed small business owner thing. And I will be forever grateful. After 3 months of balancing both my full-time day job and a quickly growing copywriting side hustle, I was finding myself exhausted. I was absolutely drained mentally, physically, and emotionally, and I was losing serious steam. I wasn't sure how much longer I'd be able to juggle both jobs, and the perfectionist in me was unwilling to let either responsibility drop below my 110% standard. I knew that if I wanted my new business to succeed, I needed more time and energy to devote to its growth. And without the ability to add another 10 hours to each day, clone myself, or streamline caffeine, this simply wasn't going to happen. And so, at the gentle nudging of my amazing husband, thanks, babe, I turned in my notice. 363 days after setting my original goal, I told my boss I had to go. 2 days shy of my self-imposed deadline, I left the corporate world. I excitedly waved goodbye to waking up every morning only to put on a mask that censored who I was and camouflaged me to better fit a mold. I said so long to guaranteed regular paychecks, health insurance, and paid sick days. I ran as fast as my curvy, non-athletic ass could from annoyingly unnecessary meetings that should have been emails, disjointed expectations, and constantly changing management styles. I laughed and ugly cried at the promise of never again having to sit in silence, biting my tongue, as another Karen screamed profanities at me about a supposed offense committed by the company at large, but now something she was holding me personally accountable for. Then I sat back, threw my hair up into an ugly knot, rolled up my sleeves, turned on some gangster rap, and got to work building my empire. And that, my new friends, brings us to today. I've been in business for myself for just over 3 months now. I wake up every morning without an alarm clock. I spend the first few hours of each day working either from my desk or the couch or the bed, writer's choice, and make my way to a local park, diner, or beer garden to work through the afternoon, while also focusing on my health by soaking up as much vitamin D as I can here in the rainy Pacific Northwest. And that is who I am, where I'm from, and why it matters. I hope you'll join me for future episodes where I'll be chatting with some of the other amazingly savage business leaders that I've met and connected with along my own journey so far. I'll be answering your questions and dropping some serious industry knowledge bombs to help with developing and creating your own professional copy and content as you work on building your small business empire. Email us at megs@megswrites.com with any questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Who knows, you may hear your question discussed in a future episode. You can also follow us for additional updates, puppy pics, and food porn on Instagram at Caffeinate and Conquer Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the fun, and spread the word to your fellow badass caffeinated friends. The more the merrier. As always, thanks for listening, make good life choices, and see you next week.